So over the past few days, I've been messing around with mapping out some of the old mine sites here in Cumberland Furnace, as well as looking at areas where parts of the railroad used to be and a few other things. And I've been having a lot of fun with it, so I thought I'd try to make a quick video and share some of it with any of those that might be interested. So here before us we have the 1923 Dixon County map. I've got it zoomed in into kind of the area that I've been messing around with. Here's Van Leer and Cumberland Furnace. There's right here, this is Old Dry Hollow. This is the path that used to be the road before New Dry Hollow became the road. You can see it kind of went on the south side of the tracks here. And then right here is Butcher Ridge. And then right around Butcher Ridge area that jogged over to the north side. And then there's Dry Hollow School, and you know, kind of kept on going on the north side all the way over to Cumberland Furnace. And down through here is Bell Hollow. And goes back over towards Van Leer. On this map, it's fun to look at because one, you know, it kind of shows you where the railroad tracks used to be, get an idea. It's fun because all these little boxes are actually where houses were. You can see this one's got a cross on top because that's letting you know that was a church. The little flags on top let you know those were schools. If you look closely, you see pickaxe and hammer. That's for mining sites, which doesn't show a lot of them. It does show a few, but seeing those, you know, I was always curious about the mining sites. We have an old ore pit on the back of our property that we discovered in the 80s when we moved here, and at first we were calling it the crater because it looked like an asteroid crater or something, you know, jokingly. And then later, as we got familiar with the area and learning about the history, it started to tell us what's what. But one of the things that's always puzzled me was, where was this rail spur right here that came off the tracks that went from Van Leer to Cumberland Furnace and then kind of traversed over here to Bell Hollow, because there was a mine over here in Bell Hollow. So used to, I thought I knew where it was according to this school location, because I kind of have a rough idea where that school was. But I've come across some new data from the USGS, and this kind of uses LiDAR and some other forms of digital elevation data to reveal the terrain to you. And I've been having a lot of fun looking at that stuff, and I'll kind of elaborate why. So here's the 1923 map. This would be a more current map of what things would look like with, you know, aerial view and trees and everything involved. So here's Van Leer and New Dry Hollow as we know it now, which used to be the tracks going over to Cumberland Furnace, and then this would be Bell Hollow, and this would have been the tracks going out this way. So let me go back to here. So over here in Van Leer, I was always curious how the train got transferred over to these tracks, but it was this little bend right here. I thought it might have done it somewhere in Van Leer, but it's this little bend right here. And on current maps, you know, you don't really see anything. It's kind of hard to make out. I mean, you'd totally miss some of this stuff if you didn't know what you were looking for. But with this data to look at, it gives you like a grayscale view of it, and you can really see the details of what's in the terrain. Let me strip away the aerial view here. And you can see, you know, the roads and everything are there. I'll zoom in a bit. Again, this is, let me reference it, you know, it's Van Leer, this is New Dry Hollow, this is 49. This is the swamp. Right here you can really start to see where some of those tracks were. So here's 49. It looks like the rail kind of paralleled the tracks. Let me go back to this map. You can see right here, here's the road and then the tracks. It looks like they paralleled each other for a pretty good little ways right there. And you can really see that right here, because here's 49. You see this bend going over to what was New Dry Hollow, which was the tracks. And then there's a little, you know, indentations left of rail bed. And then also this little jog off over here, which goes back over towards Van Leer and would have been connected into over here with some of the old rail bed and things of that nature. So I thought that was pretty interesting. That was fun to look at. Another thing about Van Leer I've always wondered about was when you're driving down the road here and like heading towards the new school, and then like you're gonna head out towards Sylvia. I always noticed out in this area right here, it looks suspicious. It looked like that's a rail bed. But I was never sure, but I mean it definitely looked like it. And then looking at this data, I was thoroughly pleased. I was like, yep, there it is. You can totally see that rail bed right there. I mean, it just gets revealed. Here's the road 49 where you'd normally be driving down. But you can see where it kind of jogged out off this direction and 49 went this way. And here's where you would turn, like if you're gonna go down Sylvia Road right here and go towards the airport. And see it took a gentle bend right there and kind of kept going, and eventually it starts to meet up with the road. So you can kind of see where all that went. There was a little train station there in Sylvia at one point too, as well as Van Leer. The one in Van Leer here was pretty much directly behind the bank. I've shared some 1958 aerial photos, but you know, here's People's Bank, and it was roughly back here on People's Bank. Okay, back to the other stuff I was discussing. So these were the tracks, which is New Dry Hollow now. When the tracks got removed, they just moved the road to where the tracks were, because like I had said earlier, the Dry Hollow used to run along the south side and then jog around to the north side around Butcher Ridge. But if you just keep following New Dry Hollow, which was the tracks, and keep going, you can find where that spur was that came off. So let's get back to what we're familiar with, so we don't get lost. Here's Butcher Ridge, which I'm very familiar with this road because I've lived here for most of my life. Here's New Dry Hollow. Right here is where I believe the spur was. I'm pretty sure. So zoom in a little bit. You can see, you know, this is the road, which was the tracks. You see a little bit of a faint branch off right here. And then, you know, it starts to go out here in between the hills. And it makes sense that it would go this way, because right here is a giant ore pit. This is one of the mines. I mean, they call them ore pits, mines. They called them, you know, a mine, ore pit. They weren't digging underground, they were digging stuff out of the ground. So these tracks, which was the rail spur, kind of snaked along through here, riding along the edges of some of these hills near the base. This right here, I was looking at this, they both meet up at the same spot. I have a feeling that the tracks probably just took this more gentle bend than this one right here. This was probably just a pathway at one point that just ended up meeting back over here to the tracks. And then that keeps traversing along this way. And eventually it comes out around Bell Hollow over here. See, it just keeps going and going. And you're coming up on Bell Hollow, so So it comes out down around here somewhere. It used to, you know, there's nothing to see these days. You might be able to see some of these indentations in the ground still, but that's about it. But yeah, over here is Bell Hollow. You know, here, see the road, Bell Hollow Road. And it makes sense that it would cut off right about here, because there was a Bell Hollow mine, and here, see, that's right there. This is up on the hill. This is a rather large operation. All these little tiny pocks, they're also little tiny parts of mining out. You know, these were just the bigger, larger jobs of it. But what's fun about this data is, you know, it's been so long ago that mining has stopped in this area, but still yet to this day, when this data was produced, you can still see some of the pathways left behind from when they were, you know, bringing the ore out so that they could load it on the carts to get it onto the train to haul it. So that's pretty interesting, seeing all that stuff. There's another little mine over here. There it is. This is Bell Hollow. It keeps going this direction, but you can see another little mine site over here, little, you know, minor things going on. These are super easy to spot when you know what to look for, and I've been mapping topography for 25 plus years because it's kind of a hobby of mine for radio waves. I map RF propagation and things like that, so it's easy for me to distinguish between natural, you know, what's naturally forming, and what's not natural. I mean, it kind of just sticks out like a sore thumb. But anyways, that's where that rail spur was. I thought that was pretty cool. It's a little bit closer to Butcher Ridge than I thought. I thought it was just a hair down, a little bit more, like back in here is where I thought it was roughly. I thought it went through this little valley myself, honestly, at first. And then last night I discovered this, and that's another reason I'm making the videos. I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong, you know. It's a lot of this stuff, you know, you're trying to piece things together and make sense of it. Let me go to the north side of New Dry Hollow here. You know, here's Butcher Ridge, and you'll see why it was called Butcher Ridge. All this stuff is mine sites. These little tiny indentations. I don't know why this has done something strange there that's not supposed to be there. But there we go. Anyways, they're all over the place. I mean, there's just I've been waypoint marking locations on where each pit is, and I'm already up over 100, and there's still more to do. I've just been doing it for fun. As you go over to Cumberland Furnace, you know, you start to see more and more. It gets more and more heavily mined the farther east you go, towards closer to the furnaces. I mean, they're just all over the place. A lot of them you can see, like if you were to go down Woods Valley Road, some of them you can see from the road because they're so close to it. See what I mean? Like here, for instance. You drive through here, and if you were to look, if you're heading east and you look to your right, you'll see, you know, holes down in the ground, and that's what those were. Those were some of the mine sites. Some of them are deeper in the woods, but it's this data has been so entertaining for me to look at. I thought I'd share some of this. Again, as you get closer to Cumberland Furnace, you can see where it was just more and more heavily mined, because that's kind of where they started. You know, they started closer down towards the furnace area and worked their way west a bit. This is Woods Valley, and this would be Earl Leach. Another thing that I thought was interesting, like I pointed out over there around Bell, but I mean, just look at this. You see how these mounds of dirt, you know, this flow right here, this is from them digging the dirt out. You know, they had to dig dirt out to get to the stuff, so there's a lot of displacement of the earth, and they just pushed it out, and it's formed these kind of little mounds, you know, you can still see. But I get a kick out of seeing all the little pathways that they took for hauling stuff. You can still see it. I mean, you're not going to see it today, you know, because it's all covered by trees and forests and greenery. And a lot of stuff gets filled in with leaves even, you know, it gets harder to distinguish. But This right here just shows so much of it. It's so entertaining to look at. Again, there's so you can get an idea of what's what and where it is. There's Washer Hollow. This would be Washer Hollow. There's even, you can see these little barriers they got set up. It looks like this was set up for erosion control. Thought that was interesting to look at. I know you just seen some of the sites, the mine sites there, but like I said, I've been marking some of them. I've got about 100 of them marked out so far, and I created a GPS track of where the rail spur was. So I do things like this so that I can load them into my phone or a GPS app, and it'll show me on my device when I'm out and about, so I kind of know where things are. That's been fun to do. I've mapped out old roads too in the past, like for instance, like I said, this is Butcher Ridge. This would be New Dry Hollow. This is Butcher Ridge. If you look, Butcher Ridge this was kind of a main road, and the big curve to the right was actually not so traveled. That's what that kind of pathway means. This one goes over Woods Valley. But technically, I get a kick out of this one. Butcher Ridge, the main part of the road, it didn't go off to the right here. It went to the left more. We used to cut firewood out in this area because we used to have cows and everything else on this land back in the 80s. So I've been over there a lot as a kid and everything else, and I know a lot of what's out there. I know what a lot of the old roads are. Actually, one time when I was cutting wood, we were cutting wood as a family out there, and I'd ask my dad, I was like, what are these pathways? They're old wagon trails? He's like, oh no, they're probably just logging trails. But I was right. They're just old wagon trails. So, and actually one went over here to a Potts School, which this is Little Barton's Creek. This is where Little Barton's Creek Road is now. It used to connect to Butcher Ridge over here. And then there was another little pathway that actually went back towards Van Leer. And even another spot on Butcher Ridge, this one was another little pathway that's long since gone. I think it came out in what's called Hembry, was connected back here at one point. A lot of that stuff I've mapped out and got a GPS tracks of that I've done over the years. It's been fun little projects. But yeah, these mine sites, I mean, it's just, there's so many pits. I mean, they're all over the place, and I'm not even done with mapping them all out for this area. There's still some little bitty ones, especially over in this area, that I haven't tagged yet, because I'm just kind of doing this for fun in my spare time, and it gets a bit tedious, you know, to sit here and, because I got to switch between this program online to look at the data, and then I look at the GPS coordinates, and then I use another bit of software to load it as waypoints so that I can save it, and then I can use that in my phone and mobile devices, you know, to get an idea where things are on the fly when I'm out and about. Well, I guess that's it. I hope you enjoyed me geeking out to the maps a bit. Thanks for watching.